But that expropriation of the third world has been going on for 400 years, brings us to another revelation, namely that the third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Most
Hello, my friends. Hello, my family. We are back once again. How you guys doing? My friends and family. Another Nick Saturday Live. Having a great time with these. This is how I got started. Old school chats with homies and family and friends and comrades that want to radicalize themselves, decolonize their mind. I am, and I take pride in this, an unapologetic chaos agent of the left. RBN, our goal is to be the agent that shifts the Overton window to the left, and we do so with such unrelenting logic that people can't rebuke it. And my pride is when I have people listen to me and they say, "Man, you really shifted my perspective." I may not change their mind on everything, right? But as long as I can get them to change and decolonize their mind a little bit, we are doing our part. Just one guy doing the best we can on RBN. I started as a citizen journalist, sharing the stories of the Black people I would talk to in barbershops, that I would talk to on the streets about socialism and healthcare. And I wanted to share the stories. And I just had a little rinky-dink YouTube channel where I have, like, if you look at my old YouTube videos on my old channel that I abandoned to focus on RBN, it was like I'm very broke proletariat, so it was just on a tablet or whatever, not even an iPad. It wasn't that brand. It's a tablet, and I used to have these super ghetto videos, and I had a ton of people that would watch it just for my Twitter, because they like, man, let's see what this motherfucker about. He be talking a lot of shit on Twitter. Let's see what this motherfucker's about. Now I'm glad I have this platform, to the point where now I went from that to now, just 2 years later, now I have the Hill Rising. They have to do a response video to something that I have said, the commentary that I bring to the table. So we're gonna do a response. This is something I've been saying on. They released this video a few days ago. That's why I definitely had to go live today to talk about it. Just because I want to use this as a opportunity for education. I'm not mad. Like, this is not salty. This is not me saying, "Oh, how dare the Hill do this?" I'm all for this. This is the game we play. This is the game we play, right? So we're in discourse. I'm here to shift the Overton window to the left, and I expect pushback. I expect pushback from every direction. And I'm pretty confident in my opinions, my strategies. So it never shakes me. Like, this is the discourse that I've been looking forward to. Because I told you guys a few months ago, even though I think we provide a lot of great content on the channel, I don't want it to be an echo chamber. I want you guys to see how we engage in other ideas. That's why I decided to have that that debate with Destiny. Just show you guys how I will handle a standard neoliberal streamer. And now you guys see my appearance on the Hill Rising. And you guys see, like, once again, I cannot stress enough, if you guys have not watched our breakdown video, I explained I was not even prepared for a debate. I wasn't even prepared for a debate. I thought I was going to talk to Bree, and we're going to have a nice little 10-minute rant session about Venezuela. So when I talked to the producer and they said we're gonna have a 10-minute segment, I'm like, I can rant on Venezuela. I can do a 10-minute Venezuela rant in my sleep. So especially with Bree there and with the video context that we're gonna have, thought it was gonna be nice, easy, in and out, nice little awareness segment that can let people know that RBN is serious about this anti-imperialism thing, right? And then and this is not, once again, I'm not mad at this is 100% fair, right? I should have known better because I wasn't really thinking about the like Rising as a show because I don't watch it. So I knew that there was a lefty and then a right wing person, but I wasn't thinking that the right wing person was gonna chime in for whatever reason. I don't know why I thought that. I was thinking yeah, he's gonna be there. He's gonna chill. Yeah, I still train. I'm gonna take a profile. So you guys. I'm very proficient. I've been training Muay Thai a lot this year. I'm gonna start sparring again here soon too. The COVID pandemic really slowed down my training, but your boy's still a beast, man. Your boy's still a beast. So let's go. We're gonna talk about the response video they put out. They put this out on the 28th, which is fair. Nothing wrong with that. If you feel like you gotta respond to me. So let's get to it. I'm gonna also explain who they brought in to have this debate while I'm not even there, right? And if you go look at the comments, I think I'm gonna show you guys some. All the top comments in this video I'm gonna show you, they're like, why didn't you just have Nick on to debate this guy? Whatever, that's fair. That's fair. But also, there's nothing wrong with him doing a response video because Robbie was like, holy shit, I didn't know who this motherfucker was. Bree brought this motherfucker on my show. And I wasn't even ready. Hey, call the boys up. Call the neocon boys up. Hey, get the American First Policy Institute. Get their boy. We need someone. I can only imagine the Hill panicking. They just fired Katie Halper for her Israel coverage. So yeah, after that, what Katie was trying to do, then having me I gotta put my phone on charger. And having me have that segment where I completely destroy Western narratives on Venezuela. They're like, bro, we gotta bring American First Policy Institute. Send in our boy to go after Nick. So I talked enough. I prefaced this enough. Let's get into it. I'm gonna try to play the audio. Let me know how the audio sounds. I'm trying to do it so I can interrupt without pausing. But let's get into the video. This is the response. Let's get into it. Let's watch it.
Last week, we got into a fiery debate about the root causes of why Venezuelans are fleeing their country and risking their lives and the lives of their children, all for a chance at asylum here in the United States. While the Biden administration has blamed communism and political persecution, co-founder of the Revolutionary Blackout Network, Nick Cruz, blamed U.S. sanctions and interference in the global South. Let's watch.
Height of irony, the Democrats and Pierre, they complain about January 6th. If you look at the coups they sponsor in these countries that she listed, that January 6th is child play compared to what we do to Venezuela. We back Bolsonaro, who used to send death squads into Venezuela to assassinate and kill Maduro supporters. You had the hard far-right fascists in Venezuela that was setting left-wing supporters of Nicolas Maduro on fire in the streets. These are the people that we support. So the idea that you're going to blame an economic model instead of our actions is ridiculous on face value.
And I just want to bring up that at no point do they ever, in this 13-minute segment, ever dispute my main thesis, my main point. You would think that your goal in this response segment is to rebuke my main point, being that your sanctions and U.S. imperialism and hostile actions is the reason for Venezuela economic model failing. At no point do they dispute this. Anyway, I'm gonna get into the video. One thing they also never dispute. I asked Robbie this question, and I think this is why they don't have me on as well. I asked Robbie this question. We had crushing sanctions because the conversation was about, is this because of communism? Is that the reason? Okay, Venezuela had crushing sanctions on them. You had Cuba that had the Cuban embargo that have a higher life expectancy than us. What is the United States excuse? What's the excuse for the United States for Skid Row and 1 out of 5 kids living in poverty? The millions of people who live in homeless, the life expectancy rate dropping in this country. There is no excuse for that. But we're gonna let the video continue.
So I wanted to bring in someone who has a different perspective. This is Daniel DiMartino. Thank you so much for joining us, Daniel.
Thanks, Robbie.
Robbie, why don't you explain to the audience who this guy is? Why don't so I don't know, I'm gonna pull it up because I don't want to mess it up because I wrote a note. So usually when they bring guests on, they will say, "Oh, this is my guest. They do this. They're a part of that. This is their background." I'm interested. Why didn't Robbie say this is Daniel DiMartino, who's an ambassador for the American First Policy Institute that is funded by BlackRock and Dow? And he literally at one point begged the United States to launch an invasion to Venezuela. That's my guess. You notice how they don't say that? Just a very interesting point of view. Let's get back to the video. Hold up. I am producing today. So the only way I'm really gonna read chats today if it's super chat. So show some support because I'm just producing today.
Yeah, and after we did this segment with Nick Cruz, he had this very strong, far to the left view of what was going on, and so I wanted to offer some pushback from someone I know is an expert from the other perspective. So, what is your view of what has gone wrong in Venezuela?
Well, my eyes were popping as I was listening to what the other guest was saying because it's just completely false, right? People don't flee even because of targeted political persecution in the millions, right? You're not seeing millions of Iranians crossing the border over to Turkey. You're not.
These say political persecution? What political persecution? You mean the political persecution of Nicolas Maduro and his government going after people who try to violently overthrow his government? You mean the same thing that the Democratic Party is doing? The Democratic Party is putting people in prison for January 6th. And they are now excusing the use of putting sanctions on the country because they say, oh, Nicolas Maduro is prosecuting political opponents. The political opponents who did what, sir? Finish the statement. You mean the political opponents that tried to undemocratically, violently overthrow the government and colluded with hostile foreign powers like Bolsonaro in Brazil, Ivan Duque in Colombia, and the fascist regime in the United States? When you actually consider what these people have done, the people they claim have been persecuted in Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro was extremely nice. It was extremely nice when you consider that. I'll get back into it.
You're not seeing millions of people living from, say Saudi Arabia, where women have no rights. But you are seeing millions of people fleeing Venezuela because the difference between all these countries and Venezuela is that even though they're all authoritarian, there's no democracy. The difference is that
we are authoritarian and we don't have a democracy. And if we had a debate, if I was talking to this guy, I will ask him a question that no capitalist can ever answer. I want you to define authoritarianism. No, seriously. If you're a capitalist, define what authoritarianism means. Because last time I checked, in this country, when we was protesting, you guys launched tear gas into crowds, which is a war crime. Because why? They say, oh, we're going to commit a war crime on our people because they did what? They broke the rules. Right? That's authoritarianism. So when we implement our central planning model that is given by the mandate of the people, which is given by the social revolution in Venezuela under Hugo Chavez, and the continued support of the people of Nicolas Maduro, then we implement the social programs that is widely supported by his supporters, and then you guys want to overthrow his government, and you had the bourgeoisie that wages a class war against Venezuela, who resist and do not comply with the policies set by Maduro. You cannot say that's authoritarianism when they enforce their laws and go after these people. That is the same thing you guys do to the poor in this country. We have fucking class war being waged by the workers where we were being sent to prison for small tax grievances. The IRS focuses on workers in this country, but not the rich. So they lock us up for not following the tax code. When you say, oh, the United States is a fascist, authoritarian country. So if the Hill is up to it, we could have a long 20, 25-minute conversation. And I want Daniel to properly define what authoritarianism is and what makes Venezuela uniquely authoritarian. Because at what they don't address, at no point did I actually defend Venezuela. I was just explaining basic concepts of governance to them. Well, I literally was talking to Robbie. I was like, Robbie, laws exist. Let me explain to you how the real world works. Laws exist. Countries going to enforce laws. So the United States, they say, oh my God, the Venezuelans are enforcing their laws. Let's put sanctions on them. I'm talking too much, so I'll let the video play for a little bit because I want to let you guys know I can respond to quite literally every sentence that this guy says. But I know that may be annoying. So I'm gonna let it play for quite a bit. Just so you guys can hear the segment. I chime in a little bit.
Venezuela does not respect private property. There's no economic opportunity, and the average person makes less than $100 a month.
Sorry, last thing. You can say the same thing about the United States and the Western allies. Sorry, that seriously be the last thing I'll say.
And that is not because of U.S. sanctions. That is not because of the oil price. That is completely because the government decided to take over the means of production, overregulate businesses, and totally crumble the economy.
Daniel, the argument that Nick was making wasn't that people were fleeing in large numbers because of political persecution specifically. The argument was that there have been a number of interventions on the part of the U.S. government into Venezuela's economy. There have been obviously sanctions, which you mentioned just there. And there is an obvious gap between Venezuela having the world's largest oil resources and its ability to capitalize them on the global market. But for sanctions, I wonder what you attribute to the idea that it can't seem to be able to monetize to great financial benefit what is one of the largest source of one of the most valuable commodities on the globe.
Yeah, Venezuela has a lot of oil underground. The sanctions are not what's stopping the Venezuelan regime from taking that oil above ground. What destroyed Venezuela's oil production capacity has been years of state-owned oil industries. Since the 1970s, this is even before Chavez, Venezuela's oil production peaked because that's when the government took over the oil industry and they just decided to start using the money to give away free things to people instead of investing in...
Oh no, giving things to the people. Oh my God. What a horrific thing. What a horrific action by the authoritarian thug Nicolas Maduro, giving people housing and health care. How dare you?
The necessary capital, renovations, maintenance that would allow Venezuela to refine and produce oil into gasoline. Venezuela used to have some of the largest refineries in the world, and they exploded. There were literal explosions of gas and oil facilities in the north coast of Venezuela. And that's not because, as the regime blames...
Bro, sorry, I let it play. How many oil leaks and mismanagement have we had in this system? Remember the premise of this conversation. The premise of this conversation is communism the reason why? So in order to prove your thesis that communism is why, you must prove that other economic models is not doing the same thing you're accusing communism of. Do you guys understand that basic debate premise? If you're debating the thesis that communism is the reason, you can't point to other things that's happening to capitalism and other systems and be like, well, why are you doing whataboutism? Well, that quote unquote whataboutism debunks your entire argument. Because if you ask this guy, does capitalism work? I bet you he would say yes. Anyway, sorry, I'll let it play a little bit.
Marco Rubio hacked some systems. It is simply because they have not decided to invest in the facilities. For the people who are concerned about sanctions, Venezuela has a few sanctions in place by the U.S. government. One of them is that the U.S. is not going to buy oil from them. Now, I don't know why people who are on the left, who are so mad when the U.S. trades with other countries, will get mad when the U.S. just decides to stop trading with the Venezuelan regime. These sanctions aren't even broad like what we see in Cuba.
This motherfucker really just pulled the socialism is when you don't trade. Do you guys just heard what this dude just said? Apparently, socialism is when you don't trade with other countries. My question I want to ask you and Robbie, if socialism and communism does not work, why do you got to refuse to cooperate with them? Why do you have to sanction them? You notice at no point do they answer these questions. His response is seriously, socialism does not work because you can't have a government without trading? This is how serious these people are, guys. This is how unbelievably, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. I'll let it play. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You can send food, you can send money, you can send medicines to Venezuela right now from where we are in the United States. There are thousands of people who use dozens of companies based out of Miami and Houston to send food home to home in Caracas. That would be impossible to do for families in Iran or Cuba. Then why do you see people starving in Venezuela and not in Iran and escaping those countries?
People are starving in this country. By the way, I just want to keep pointing these things out because these debunks his entire argument, and their evidence. I'm gonna show you. Max Blumenthal did great reporting. The food shortages in Venezuela are greatly overreported and exaggerated by Western media. If you go to Venezuela and Max Blumenthal, I'm gonna show you a video. If you go there, you can find food. The sanctions make it so they can't get certain food items and certain medicine. That is what this guy is defending. He's defending cutting off food supply and medicine, and then they look and say, oh my God, why can't you feed your people? For one, they are, because they actually did restructure their central planning system so they can accommodate for the sanctions, which is why the people still support Nicolas Maduro, except for the class traders and gusanos like this person.
I think that's where the cost lies. It's the policies of those regimes. It's not the U.S.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody would argue that, of course, just like in the United States and pretty much every country in the world, there's corruption that it always is going to have an impact here. And there are poor decision makings that can happen under capitalism and under socialism as well. But when you look across the world at a number of petrostates that are under national control in Europe, in Canada, and even the kind of oil dividends that happen in Alaska certainly isn't a feature of national ownership that causes a diminishment in the quality of the industry having run. What we're seeing right now in Italy is that some of the only industries that have withstood the extreme economic decline the country has been in for some time are those industries which were nationalized at the time the economic crisis started. So this conversation began because Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, attributed the migration exclusively to communism. And it seemed to be a moment where they were trying to somehow preserve the integrity of capitalism as an institution, despite all of the capitalist countries, all of the world's countries, which basically are capitalist, and none of which are communist, in fact. And to do a
Bree is making a great point here that you notice, and I'm gonna let it play a little bit as well. The guest never disputes my main thesis, nor Bree's main thesis. I can dispute their main thesis that communism is the reason this is happening. No, this is United States sanctions, and you had the U.S. actions in Venezuela that the State Department under Donald Trump bragged about bringing Venezuelan economy to their knees. You have the Bank of England that stole $1.3 billion of Venezuelan gold. Like, there is examples of capitalists rigging the Venezuela economy. That is way more relevant than you saying it's just their economic system. That is deeply unserious. So I just want to point out the great point that Bree is making here, and then look at his response that does not dispute that at all.
A little bit of punching at the left. It didn't seem necessary in the moment. I mean, do you believe that Venezuela is a communist country and was rightly and communism was rightly described as the cause of the emigration per Karine Jean-Pierre?
Well, I think you made a lot of points there, so let me address them. Sure. First, you mentioned something about Italy and the state-owned industries being studying the economic crisis. Alitalia, the state-owned airline of Italy, has gone broke more times than I can count. There are no state-owned.
So are we using companies going broke as the gauge for your economic system being successful, sir? Do you sure you want to use that as your strategy? That's why I would stop the conversation right here. Like, are you sure you want to go down that path? When you look at the airlines that needed bailouts in this country, when you look at the fact that 50% of small businesses fell in the first year. So if you want to say, oh, businesses fail, this is why your economic system sucks, thank you for your critique of capitalism, sir.
Industries in Italy that have withstood any crisis.
That's not true. And we'll have a guest on later today who's tweeted about this and talked about this.
I can tell you this because my grandparents are Italian. They live in Italy. I've been to Italy many times. It's well known. Their economy is not well.
Right, but that's the point that I'm making, actually, that their economy is not well. But many people have pointed to, including a guest we'll be talking to later today, the fact that there's particular industries that have been able to stand the test, despite the overwhelming majority of industries that have crumbled being privately owned in their current economic crisis. But somehow it is not when a private industry collapses and fails, it's not attributed to capitalism. And so we're just trying to tease out why it is that every failure that happens in a free market context is attributed to, oh, well, that's just what it is. It's not an indictment of the free market system.
Just like that, Bree dismantled him. Just like that. I just want to let you guys know. His entire argument dismantled, and he's going to pretend that she didn't do it. She's going to pretend that she don't understand, that he don't understand what she's saying.
Well, because under the market system, there will be failures, but the premise of the market system is there will be some firms will fail and some will succeed, but when the system is government run, there's no...
That is not true, Robbie. See, if I was here, I would have to hold Robbie's hand again and explain to him how the real world works. He said in a free market economy, they will choose the winner. That is not how it works. Look at the corporate bailouts. Our system is a fraud. Our financial system is a fraud. It already failed multiple times. Our government chooses winners and losers all the time. Even in good policy that anyone can agree with. Everyone can agree it's a good idea for government to give subsidies to farmers so the cost of food could be lower. Everyone agrees to that. But you guys then acknowledge and support that, then turn around and say, under our system, we don't pick winners or losers. If it was truly a free market system, you wouldn't have the subsidy for the farmers, and you let food prices go out of control, and then we'll show you guys how much of a fraud and a sham your system really is. So what we are asking is, if we had an actually smart central planning program, system, and philosophy, not only will we have food subsidies to keep price down, I don't know, we will have housing subsidies too, so people can live for free. Healthcare subsidies. We will actually have a well-running, functioning society. So, Robbie, I have to explain to you how governments work once again. And I let it play. I still got a lot to say. Jesus Christ. Only 7 minutes in. 7 minutes in. And I can't stop myself. I let it play for quite a few minutes here.
That have crumbled being privately owned in their current economic crisis. But somehow it is not when a private industry collapses and fails, it's not attributed to capitalism. And so we're just trying to tease out why it is that every failure that happens in a free market context is attributed to, oh, well, that's just what it is. It's not an indictment of the free market system.
Well, because under the market...
And by the way, I'm pretty sure she's asking Daniel that question. Why, Robbie, why you gotta help your boy out? Do you guys see in my conversation, I would chomping at the bits. I would interrupting Bree. I interrupted Bree a few times, and Bree like, all right, let me chime in, Nick. Like I was, and then I let Bree speak because I realized like maybe all right, I'm gonna let Bree respond now. But I was chomping at the bit. Meanwhile, Robbie had to take this on because he know his boy can't handle one-on-one here.
System, there there will be failures, but the premise of the market system is there will be some firms will fail and some will succeed. But when the system is government run, there's no competition for, so it will fail because it is not subject to those pressures because it doesn't have competition from some other firm.
But Robbie, the expectation isn't that being nationalized, it insulates you against any negative consequences or struggling as a business point blank period. People are part of a global economy. There are all sorts of factors that are going to impress upon you regardless. The question is, why is it that the answer to every crisis is always privatization, no matter how negative the effects of said privatization are, when there are myriad examples of successful nationalization across the world, and those aren't pointed to as an example of why everything should be nationalized. I'm not even sitting here saying everything should be nationalized or everything should be privatized. I'm not the one who went out of my way to attack capitalism, like way Jean-Pierre attacked communism.
I can address what you mentioned about state-owned oil industries in other countries, right? Well, so, you can begin with what happens in...
That is not her point, Daniel. You see how Daniel changes the subject? Bree's point was, how can you blame state-owned companies for failing when there's many examples of private companies failing under capitalism? And Daniel, let me talk about state companies again. I'm not gonna address the question at all. And you can get away with that when you do 13 to 15-minute segments. But in a longer conversation, I will let them go and all right, that's cute. Now explain that question I asked you earlier.
In the Middle East, where those are in name state-owned oil industries, but in reality, they're privately owned by the royal families of those countries. They basically function as a cash cow of a family and as a private company. If you want to look at a more successful state-owned oil industry, you have to look at Norway, where they basically made it independent from the government, the company. The company has shareholders. They try to function as a quasi-private entity, because the difference between governments and private industries is that governments maximize votes while private industries maximize profits. If you have a company that maximizes votes, like what we had in Venezuela with not just the oil industry, but basically every single thing the government took, from agriculture to banking.
This dude is so full of shit.
The government tried to hire more people than they needed. They lowered the price below cost.
Sorry, I'll let it play.
Went broke. That's not what happens in Norway. In fact, they try to maximize profit to save money for the national fund, to reduce taxes. It's a totally different mentality.
So is that an advocacy then for a Norwegian model of state ownership of the oil companies?
No, because, well, I think that if you were to have a state-owned oil industry in Venezuela, the government is definitely going to take the money to give things for free to people. And it's...
Huh? See, say that again, Daniel. Say that again. Why was Hugo Chavez so popular, Daniel? Hey, question, Daniel. Why was Hugo Chavez so popular? Explain it to me. Let's go. I'm going to go back just a few seconds here. Say that again.
It's a totally different mentality.
So is that an advocacy then for a Norwegian model of state ownership of the oil companies?
No, because, well, I think that if you were to have a state-owned oil industry in Venezuela, the government is definitely going to take the money to give things for free to people.
There it is. There's the objection that capitalists and these unhinged capitalists have to the Venezuelan model. You guys, we have a large natural resource that we are becoming rich on, and we're going to give that to the people. Hugo Chavez, he gave health care and increased the quality of life for the ordinary people when he became charged. And then the United States decided, oh, we got to fuck shit up in Venezuela because we cannot show this model working. We got to intervene. That's why Barack Obama put them as a national security threat for no reason, which is something else he never brings up as well. That was a root cause for the inflation in Venezuela. You had John Bolton bragging that they destabilized the economy in Venezuela, and they want to steal the oil because they're going to give the oil to the people. Do you guys see the unhinged ideology that they were just saying straight out in the open? I'm going to play it again. I'm going to play it one more time so you guys can see what Daniel is really about.
No, because, well, I think that if you were to have a state-owned oil industry in Venezuela, the government is definitely going to take the money to give things for free to people. And it's just look at what happens here in the United States. What is state-owned in this country? USPS, excellent, billions of dollars every year that we lose to taxpayers. The veterans healthcare system, where we have the worst healthcare for the people who did the most.
Daniel, that's not true. The veterans healthcare system, it has its flaws for sure, in part because Republicans keep trying to cut the funding, just like they keep trying to cut UPS funding. So what ends up happening in the United States of America is that there is a targeted attack on social programs, and then the failure of those social programs is blamed on them being national programs, as opposed to the concerted efforts to undermine them. And I would just like to say,
are you serious?
that many people think that giving people to stuff for free when there's an enormous amount of income inequality in a country is exactly what should be done. And that kind of cavalier indifference to whether or not there are people who are really struggling in a country is why you get revolution in the first place.
Daniel, before we go, can you speak a little bit to
Bro, look at, remember, me and CJ, we talk about body language all the time. I'm going to play the last 10 seconds. Look at his body language. This is a guy who knows he's being dismantled. And he knows he's full of shit. He knows it. And he knows he's being exposed, which is why his boy Robbie has to chime in to shift the conversation. Because he's being dismantled easily. I'll go back 10 seconds. Look at his body language.
A cavalier indifference to whether or not there are people who are really struggling in a country is why you get revolution in the first place.
Daniel, before we go, can you speak a little bit to you're Venezuelan. I'm sure you still have family there. To the action, who is rewarded, who is given money, how does the corruption and the person?
All right, I'm gonna answer your question, Robbie. Under a capitalist system, who is rewarded? Who is given the money? No, answer the question. Corporate bailouts and the Paycheck Protection Program allow black businesses and small businesses to fail, while Nancy Pelosi's husband got a bailout. While you got all the rich oligarchs who got bailouts, and then they advocate for small government. So under our system, the capitalist central planning model, which the goal is to enrich the capitalists, they give money to the rich and allow everyone else, the large majority of the populace, to suffer because capitalism crashes every 5 to 8 years. So then when it crashes, our leaders chooses the winners. They choose to give bailouts to the rich. So that's what happened under a capitalist central planning model. So that, I just answered your question, Robbie, but I'll let the video finish to its conclusion because it's almost over. So I'll let the last 2 minutes play without interrupting, I promise. Dude, I'm telling you guys, every single thing they said I could respond to. Everything. And I'm going to let the video play. I still got quite a few stories to cover, so let's
Daniel,
video play.
Can you speak a little bit you're Venezuelan. I'm sure you still have family there. To the action, who is rewarded, who is given money, how does the corruption and the persecution actually work in practice?
Well, I mean, there's a very easy way to end inequality, and that is to do what Venezuela did, where now everybody makes very little money, and there's very much income equality, around $100, $50 to $200.
Bro, the capitalist is talking about income inequality. That's all I gotta say.
A month.
Unbelievable.
My family was making
$4,000
a month in the early 2000s, like many American families did. And by 2016, when I left, I was making $100 a month. If I had stayed, the best future that I could have had was to be able to feed myself. I saw moms fighting other moms in the street with knives for trash to feed their kids.
You can find the same stories in the United States.
That's why people are crossing all the way to Colombia, then Panama, all Central America, Mexico, to come to the southern border from Venezuela. And it is
because the United States destabilized the country and cracked down on the economy by shutting them out of the global market. Why are you leaving that out? And at no point are they disputing that.
It is not just another corrupt Latin American country. It is not even about the authoritarian of the political regime, because there are many authoritarian countries without millions of people fleeing. It is about the government destroying the economy. And I am honestly so angry that the left in this country keeps blaming sanctions. You know what? Congratulations to Karine, to Jean-Pierre, the press secretary, for saying it like it is. It is socialism. It is communism, because it is state ownership of the means of production that destroy Venezuela. No, nationalizations are not good. I do not want to live in the Soviet Union or in Venezuela.
Once again, I have to bring up, look up the State Department document, U.S. actions in Venezuela under the Trump administration, the Trump State Department even tweeted it out and then later deleted it, where they was bragging about how their foreign policy, their sanctions, and their intervention in Venezuela that was helped out by Ivan Duque and Jair Bolsonaro destabilized Venezuela. These are things that the government that you support admits, Daniel. You are making stuff up. Your own government admits that their actions led to the destabilization of Venezuela.
I gotta correct that. That's not the definition of socialism or communism. Just like you can have market forces in a communist or socialist party, as you described in a country. As you described,
socialism is not the means. It's not the state ownership of the means of production.
It's not the entire. It's not a communist government. It's not a socialist government. It's more than that. And you can have
the textbook definition.
You can have state ownership. We have state-owned companies here, just like he just pointed out with UPS. That doesn't make
right, and they're socialist.
That doesn't make us a socialist country. You think America's a socialist country now?
No, but that's a socialist policy. If you stay
right,
state-owned.
This last part of the conversation is completely irrelevant to my argument, by the way. I was going to let that. That's why this whole part is a waste of time at the end.
Jean-Pierre said that Venezuela was a communist country. That's what's being debated here. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Wow. That was so once again, I couldn't interrupt that much more, but I wanted to do a play-by-play just so you guys can see the response that the Hill had to put out there. And this is, if you look at the comments, and I did my play-by-play because once again, I'm not mad at them for bringing their boy on to help their boy Robbie out. That technically what Bree did last time when I was on, and I was talking my shit, right? And that's why I had to do my response video. But if you look at the top comments, you see I literally just loaded it. And it's not picked out, not cherry picked, literally just top comments. I appreciate you guys hosting this discussion, which I do too. I love this shit. This is discourse. But personally, I think it's a little weird to invite someone on after the fact to push back on Nick's points with only a 10-second clip for context that does not come close to escapulating the breadth of Nick's points. Even the Hill's mostly conservative audience, even if this guy liberal conservative, it doesn't matter. 139 likes. Even their own audience see what they're doing. The same thing when I went on the Hill, and literally all the comments was positive. You had an entire mostly conservative audience in the Hill, and this comes from the Bree, where he said most. It's just literally a fact. Most of the viewers who watch the Hill vote Republican. They know that because they got internals. So it's a conservative audience. And the comment section is dominated with positive coverage of a communist, explaining the actions and how the U.S. sanctions is the reason for Venezuela having struggles. Because it's obvious. It's not even. It had nothing to do with ideology. Everyone knows this. And he said, if you want to have a discussion, let's have it. Bring on both guests to talk. Let me zoom in. I know it may be hard to see. See, look, it's. I'm gonna just read a few of these just so you guys see where their audience is coming from. Don't impose sanctions. Let Venezuelans decide for themselves whether they want to vote with their feet or stay. Bring this guy back to push back against Nick to his face. Daniel and Nick should have this debate, and we need a 15 to 20 minute segment. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Give us a meaty debate. Once again, I would love this. I would love for this to be half an hour. Let's talk about what authoritarianism means. Let's talk about what it means to have an economic central planning model. The United States, the richest country in the world, has massive poverty. To the point, you have Cuba that has been embargoed, lost billions, hundreds of billions of dollars over decades. And they got higher life expectancy rate, a lot higher literacy rate, better healthcare outcomes, better education system. That is what you call the better central planning model. China, way more people, way less poverty than the United States, with less resources to spread out per capita. That is what you call a more efficient central planning model. And I want to ask these people these questions in a long form conversation. I will ask them the question: if socialism and communism is if it's so bad, why won't you guys leave it alone? And if Robbie don't support sanctions in Venezuela, so I guess the strategy, if I knew that, because I told you guys when I first had this debate, I thought I was debating like a Ronald Reagan Republican, and then people say, "Oh, he's a libertarian," and he said a few times that he didn't support sanctions. Whatever, okay, whatever. But this guy, I want to ask him, if you believe their economic system is a failure, why not allow it to fail? Allow them to have agency, and then they will vote in your preferred economic model. They know that would not happen. So I'm gonna show you guys the guy who was on the Hill. Dan Cohen shared this to me. So this is who this guy is. He actually was begging the United States to have a military invasion in Venezuela. So my question to Daniel, why do you want the military to intervene in Venezuela instead of allowing the strength of your capitalist arguments to persuade the people? But look, this is him. This is a video of the guy that they brought on to debunk me. And once again, Robbie didn't let his audience know this. So here he is.
Hi, I'm Daniel DiMartino. I'm with Vente Venezuela. And so I think this is just what every Venezuelan is asking and right now. And I think the most important question here, and is what will it take for the United States to give a real threat of military action to free Venezuela and actually follow through on that threat?
Huh?
What will it take? That's my question.
Bro, you realize that Daniel is asking questions to the most unhinged warmongers in the planet, right? This is the Atlantic Council. And his question to these people is a question to their right. He's like, yeah, I know you guys want to topple Maduro. I know you guys doing all these actions against Venezuela. When you're gonna go? When are you gonna send the military? He's attacking the Atlantic Council to the right. This is unbelievable. This is the guy they brought on to debunk me. This is unbelievable. So during my debate with Robbie brought up how there are Cubans in Florida that support the Cuban embargo. So I asked Robbie, and he never answered. The Cubans that support the embargo, does that sound like people who care about the quality of life of Cuban people? So I'm going to ask the same question to Daniel. And I will if we have a debate. Daniel, the United States invading Venezuela, how is that good for the Venezuelan people? You talking about massive death. The suppression of Maduro supporters, which is Black, Indigenous, and poor people, which they never explain. The people who oppose Maduro is people like Daniel, who gets the opportunity to ask a question at the Atlantic Council. These are the kind of people who oppose Nicolas Maduro. Are we clear? This is the white bourgeoisie that is waging a class war on the Black indigenous people of Venezuela. This is why he is all for the sanctions. Because fuck the poor people of Venezuela. Fuck the Black people in Venezuela. Fuck the indigenous people in Venezuela. That is what he truly believes. Indigenous more than anything. Venezuela is largely indigenous. Someone correct me in the chat, but I think it's like 30, 40% indigenous. Just fact check me, guys, because that's on top of my head. I might be wrong on that. But these indigenous people and these poor people supported the Venezuela revolution 20 years ago. And these Gusano class traders have been waging war against Venezuela. So then Robbie brings this guy on and like, oh, I got my Venezuelan friend. I got my Venezuelan friend. This guy that got connections with the Atlantic Council. So this is Dan Cohen, friend of the show. You just saw him on this week. Here's their guest begging the U.S. to invade Venezuela at an Atlantic Council event. And so he's an Indiana-based, by the way, Indiana-based Venezuela high school student. How do you get those connections, Daniel? We got questions for you. I would love a 30-minute conversation where I can actually be like, how do you get these connections, bro? How you see how the United States is treating? Oh, I see one person in chat. One person in chat says 52% mestizo, 43% white. So I don't want to just overstate. So thank you for one. That just come from one chat. I see. But hey, Daniel, how Indiana base? How you get there? You see how the United States treat the Venezuelan migrants? Very, very interesting. Very, very interesting connections you have. Dan Cohen knows this guy. Maybe I should have had Dan Cohen on. Damn, maybe I should have did a segment yesterday with Dan Cohen. It would have been great if Dan Cohen was on while I did a segment. That would have been great. Apparently, he knows who he is. He reported on this scumbag 3 years ago. He's an underling. Oh, of this person. I know I see this name. I've seen this person before. The only twin in Venezuela though. So let's see what they say. What's she about? The U.S. government funded Oppo figure who was implicated in the U.S. plot to murder Maduro. Ah, there it is. Ah, so this guy, holy shit, Daniel, you sneaky. So you are connected with the Oppo party that tried to kill the president of Venezuela, and then you turn around and complain about authoritarianism. So guys, let me point a hypothetical, YouTube. Imagine if any black leftist group made a plot to kill Joe Biden, and then we was arrested, and then we get a press conference. We was like, oh, this is an example of the authoritarian state of the United States. That's what this guy just did. Your side tried to kill the president, sir, multiple times. Your side colluded with fascist thugs that came from fascist mercenary thugs that came from Bolsonaro's Brazil, and the coalition they formed with fascist thugs in Colombia with Ivan Duque. That is treason of the highest order, and in the United States, that's punishable by death, right? So if you did what the opposition party did in Venezuela, they would kill you here. They will assassinate the supporters too. They assassinated left protesters here. Let's see. So here's some few receipts I want to show you guys to back up my argument, and then I'm gonna show you guys Max Blumenthal debunking their narrative that somehow this is Venezuela is some dystopian society. But I'll get to that here. So here's John Bolton. John Bolton admits U.S.-backed coup in Venezuela is about oil, not democracy. Here's the quote. It will make a big difference to the United States economically, and we can have American oil companies invest in and produce the oil capacities in Venezuela. Bolton told Fox News. They just said it out in the open. Now, here's the video. I should just play the video. They link the video here. It's only 1 minute. Let's watch this video from John Bolton.
We're looking at the oil assets. That's the single most important income stream to the government of Venezuela. We're looking at what to do to that. We want everybody to know we're looking at all this very seriously. We don't want any American businesses or investors caught by surprise. They can see what President Trump did yesterday. We're following through on it.
So if you think of a company like Citgo, which is owned by PDVSA, which is the state-run oil company there in Venezuela, we have a lot of those Citgo assets right here in the U.S. Is that something, for example, sir, that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, we're in conversation with major American companies now that are either in Venezuela or, in the case of Citgo, here in the United States.
The collusion between corporations and government is a tenet of what? Fascism. Our government they basing their foreign policy to do the bidding of corporations. Can we just call it what it is? That's an element of fascism, plain and simple. By the way,
States, I think we're trying to get to the same end result here. You know, Venezuela is one of the three countries I call the troika of tyranny. It'll make a big difference to the United States economically if we could have American oil companies really invest in and produce the oil capabilities in Venezuela. It'd be good for the people of Venezuela.
Look at that headline. Venezuela regime change, big business opportunity. So Daniel, I will ask you this question: does this sound like the people who have the best interest in Venezuela at heart?
Venezuela, the good for the people of the United States. We both have a lot at stake here, making this come out the right way.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna show this video of Max Blumenthal. I want to give you guys take on this because I'll show you guys the video before Max Blumenthal calling out this Obama official, and you see how Robbie had to bring on Daniel, and that's okay. I have no problem with that. Bring on someone to debunk me. This is discourse. I love this shit. So I propose, you bring your boy. Let's do Robbie and Daniel, and then you have Nick and Max Blumenthal. Because I would love to bring on a leftist that has been debunking this longer than me. Because you brought your boy. Let's have something official. Let's do something that will be educational. If you guys really about that.
Okay,
So I'm gonna show you guys this video from Max Blumenthal. I need to do a chat check soon. I need a sorry. I really want to make sure I didn't miss no super chats. But imagine that. Hey, Robbie, you bring your boy. Let's bring one of our boys. I'm sure Max be down. I'm sure Max would love to debate this clown. Me and Max versus those two. Can you guys imagine? The what that would? Anyway, let me just say. Can you imagine the education that would bring? I'll try to be humble. Can you imagine the education that we could bring in that conversation? Whereas 1 hour, give us 1 hour, 2-on-2. Put it on the hill. Damn, I'm trying to scroll through the comments. There are a lot of comments. I appreciate the support. If you guys want me to see some of them, make sure you leave a super chat. I'm producing alone, so I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any. I'm trying to save a few that I find. Jesus, there's a lot of support here. Make sure you guys like and share. If you're new, you coming in. If you enjoy the commentary, subscribe. Let me put the banner up. We're trying to get RBN to 30K. I'm supposed to put this banner up, but I guess it's not a big deal. RBN 30K, man. We getting there, man. We got like 500 subscribers this week alone, which is fire. Which is good for us. I just appreciate the platform I have, so we can have this discourse, right? Damn, I feel like I missed a few super chats, man. I really feel bad about that. Let me try and scroll through one more time, just so you guys don't feel missed out. And then the last part of the segment, I'm gonna show you guys Max Blumenthal debunking literally their whole ideology, because he literally went to Venezuela, and there have been many reporters that have done the same. I'm showing you guys one example of this, where people pretend that there's no food, and what I explained to you guys before, there is food, and there is resources there. They don't have access to certain food because of the sanctions, not because of the central planning model. I already scrolled through a ton of these comments. I really, really apologize if I missed any super chats. I'll say a few of them. So I'm gonna play this video with Max Blumenthal. But before I do that, I want to say something, because a big part of Robbie's framing, one big part of Daniel's framing, was they were pretending that I was like unapologetically defending Venezuela. Like, that had nothing to do with my argument at all. My argument is that the United States was responsible for this. At no point am I defending Venezuela. If you ask me my position, I think Maduro, if you ask me about Maduro, I think he's been extremely competent. In the light, when you consider the massive Western aggression, the Bank of England stealing billions of dollars of Venezuela in gold. And the lie that the West said, they said, oh, Nicolas Maduro didn't adjust. Motherfucker, why do you think people are still fed and housed there? Yes, there's a migration crisis, but there is still a lot of support for the government because they did the best they can considering the light of Western aggression. And then you had Brazil and Bolsonaro launching militarized groups that was killing supporters of Maduro. You had Colombia that was launching attacks. You had the Barack Obama administration that labeled them a national security threat, which increased inflation. And Maduro did the best that he could do. They had a strategy where they said, we're not going to respond to these Western aggression because we cannot allow the West to paint me as an unhinged authoritarian figure. We got to do everything we can. That's why he didn't go after dissent. You can find dissent in Venezuela. The bourgeoisie media always attack Maduro because Maduro allows them to exist. He allows a lot of these parties to go after him, which is why they will show, oh, look at the resistance in Venezuela. He does that as a strategic goal because he's like, I cannot let the West have any legit reason to overthrow me. I cannot respond to sanctions. I cannot respond to U.S. aggression in any hostile way. We're just not going to respond. I'm going to keep our head afloat. And that was the best course of action. That was good leadership by Maduro. If we had a United States politician, they would have flipped out. They will declare war against the West, and then the West will use that. Oh my God! Look, we got another Gaddafi down there. Let's crush him. And I want you guys to understand, despite the restraint shown by Nicolas Maduro and the Venezuelan left, despite they had all justification to imprison and kill everyone in that opposition party based on what they did. They helped the CIA launch a coup and supported Juan Guaido in an end up when he got no votes, undemocratic election. In any other country, this party would have been dissolved. People would have been killed and executed. Do you guys have any idea the restraint that Maduro has shown? He's shown restraint, so I give him praise for that. I give him praise for being able to keep people heads afloat despite U.S. sanctions. It's the same thing I praise Iranian leaders, because you had the United States escalating against Iran for decades and decades, and they choose restraint because they trying to avoid nuclear war. China constantly showing restraint when, like Nancy Pelosi crossing the red line, going to Taiwan. The United States sending weapons to Taiwan, and then China said we're not going to respond because we got to keep our eyes on the global working class. We care about the global working class, so we can't respond. Even though that has been their red line, even though the United States violated one China policy, they look like a bitch because they did not respond. The United States put these countries in a position where they have to back down, and they do it all the time. Nicolas Maduro, his policy has been a policy of pacifism in response to the United States hostile policy, and that was the best route. And if you want to argue that he made mistakes along the way and mismanaged funds, that's okay. You can criticize politicians, right? That's okay. But to blame the economic system and the government and Nicolas Maduro for not handling perfectly the assault on the West is insane. Now I'm gonna show you guys this video from Max Blumenthal, and look at how Maduro managed this country. Which, once again, if you want to make the argument that it hasn't been perfect, okay, fair enough. But all things considered, considering what they fought against, I think Nicolas Maduro did a good job. If they had a less stable leader, then it could definitely flow off the handle. Making strategic alliances, I think with countries that had his best interests at heart. Yeah, I think he did the best he could do. I'm not even saying he's the greatest, but I think all things considered, he did okay, right? Meanwhile, in the United States, every single president we had, not only in my lifetime but in my father's lifetime, has been an insane war criminal that has only decreased the quality of life for the citizens of the United States. So I'm gonna focus on that. And that's what anyone who's serious would do. So I'm gonna show you this video of Max, and it's a 7-minute video, but I'll probably play like 3-4 minutes of it. Just on the ground, citizen journalism, debunking Western lies about Venezuela. So let's get into it.
I'm back in Chacao. I was here a few days ago. This is a wealthy area in Caracas where there was a huge opposition rally headlined by Juan Guaido to call on the Venezuelan government to allow in humanitarian aid. And people there told me that they lived in a communist dictatorship hellhole with a massive humanitarian crisis. So I'm back to see it for myself.
The socialists have done in Venezuela all of the same things that socialists, communists, totalitarians have done everywhere that they've had a chance to rule. The results have been catastrophic.
Hola, soy una turista de los Estados Unidos. Estoy buscando por socialismo. Nice. Socialismo.
Oh, sorry, I gotta take the banner off. My bad. Let me take the banner off. That's my bad. Let me
Okay.
I rewind just a little bit.
Hola, soy una turista de los Estados Unidos. Estoy buscando por socialismo. ¿No hay socialismo aquí? Un dictador comunista. ¿No es aquí? ¿Te gusta Maduro o Guaidó? Guaidó. Okay, so here's an outdoor adventure store. Urban front. What is this? Floors. You can get really nice doors. This is a security door. I feel safe in here. Maduro's goons won't get me in here. Disculpe, ¿cuál puerta es más seguro contra los goons de Maduro? Pero el Goon Squad de Maduro puedes hacer miedo así. No te gusta Maduro.
Para nada.
Para nada. Y ustedes también. No. Nadie aquí.
No. Nadie.
Tortas. Parece muy sabroso. ¿Sabroso? Sí. Y hay mucha gente que tienen hambre aquí. No.
And then you have really so many others rummaging through trash, something you and I would consider unconceivable, so common wherever we saw there. I mean, even ourselves, on an unlimited budget, we found it often quite hard to get food, and that is so staggeringly the reason why people are so furious right now.
So, anyway, what do we got? We got some really good carrot cake here, marmalade. Hola. Soy un turista de los Estados Unidos. Estoy buscando por comunismo. Quiero un estilo comunista aquí. ¿No puedes hacer un estilo comunista de Maduro? Estoy buscando por comunismo en este lugar. No hay. Gracias. Okay, so in the U.S., they say like Maduro's ruined the economy with socialism, and I can't really find any here. I'm going to keep looking for it. That's what we constantly hear from the Republicans, but it seems like capitalism really is taking over, and there's massive speculation. Here's a chocolate place. Let's go check it out. Aceptan efectivo. Dólares. Okay. Soy un turista de los Estados Unidos y
That's the main reason I want to show this video. This is a very interesting video. But you see all the food options there. There are many people that do videos where they report on the ground. You will never see this in corporate media, right? And they show like, bro, this food thing you guys talking about is not real in Venezuela. There are certain things you can't get, but the idea that you can't go to a store and find food is not a thing.
Escuchaba constantemente que Maduro destruyendo esta economía de socialismo. ¿Es una tienda socialista? No hay control del gobierno. No. Okay, ganache. What do you guys want? Algo comunista dictadora. Y Maduro permitan para vender chocolates. Es legal bajo de Maduro a vender chocolates. It's legal for you can sell chocolates under Maduro. Maduro. Minoría. It's just a little socialism. And no voy al preso para comer chocolate. $1. Por todo eso. So $1, I got some really nice chocolates for $1. Suck it, Maduro. Viva Guaidó.
So I think I played quite a bit, but you guys can all check that out. It's on the. Let me show you guys where to find. It's a good video, and there are a lot of good on the ground reporting. And even the when we show people that disagree with us in Venezuela, it's important to show that this hellscape that they're paying out is not real. There are a lot of people that go through hardships because of U.S. intervention and sanctions. but like this destitute society that Nicolas Maduro drove to the ground is not real, and when you know that, it makes the Western capitalist propaganda look even worse. So this is 3 years ago. So this is 2019. Maybe he recorded in 2018, 2019. So this is not that long ago. This is when Trump was doing his maximum pressure campaign on Venezuela. So I think that's a good way to wrap the segment up. So you guys see, Max would be good to have the professional on, right? I'll show you guys him calling out Obama's official, and he destroyed her in the debate. So imagine if me and Max versus Robbie and Daniel. That'd be interesting. But anyway, they had their segment. We had to do our response segment. I did not realize we had an hour and 10 minutes. God damn. Let me see if I can find some super chats. I saw a few. Thank you for the $2, Peter. Great stream, Nick. If you guys enjoying, like, share, subscribe. Appreciate the support. We got about almost 400 people in here. So hope you guys enjoying the stream. Hopefully it's educational. That's why I think these talks are important, because I can use these debates and these kind of political shows to drag people to the left. That's my role as a left communicator, that is, at least. Thank you for the $2, Jorge. Just saw a homeless white guy selling beer. Yeah, but apparently when there are homeless people in this country, that don't count. Only counts in a socialist country where they care about poor people. So I appreciate all the support. I see a lot of comments in here. I appreciate a lot of the supportive comments I've seen here. So I'm gonna do one more story today. Make a nice 9-minute stream. Since we're talking about foreign policy, which one I want to do? I'm torn on which one was my last story. I got a few for you guys. Jesus Christ, which one should I do? Since we talk about foreign policy, let's do the Putin story. Let me get this segment ready. So I think that'd be our next one we do. Okay, I don't think it'll be too long. So I explained on a show before why I had the position that I had regarding the Ukraine war and why I've been speaking out against NATO and Western aggression, because I'm a citizen that live in the U.S. Imperial Core. And it's our job to hold our government accountable. And anyone who's been studying history see the United States already joined this conflict when they had CIA infiltrate and train the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion and help the coup in 2014. So they are the one who got in this first. And it's our job to call that out. We should not be doing propaganda for our state that want nothing more than war in this conflict. So now, after the Russians pretty much destroy Ukraine, now you have Russia that is fighting NATO and the European powers. Don't think this Ukrainian offensive is a Ukrainian offensive. It's an offensive manned by the NATO army that is the NATO army manned by Ukrainians. That comes from Scott Ritter. So now Russia like, oh shit, the West escalated. You got Finland and Sweden that's seeking NATO membership and they had to back down from their initial threat of nuclear retaliation if Sweden and Finland join NATO. And they like, oh fuck, I didn't know the West was that crazy. They keep crossing our red lines. So they pulled back from that. And now they see the massive. The United States is about to send $12 billion more to Ukraine. They see this massive, only Western collaboration to destroy the Russian state and destroy Putin. So they're like, okay, motherfucker, this was just a military operation. Now y'all fucked up. Let's mobilize for real. And now the media melting down. Now they're like, oh my God, Russia is drafting people. Now things are going to get really devastating Ukraine. The risk of nuclear war is higher than it's ever been. Why do you guys think we've been warning you guys to stop NATO expansion? We've been warning you guys to advocate for peace because we wanted to stop this situation from getting to this point. The people who've been challenging NATO in the Western narrative, we are the one who have Ukrainian lives at heart because we want the conflict to end. The expansion of NATO and the political dominance of the fascist neo-Nazis in Ukraine is not important enough to destabilize the global economy and be responsible for the deaths of countless people. So the people who question NATO and the people who want to end the conflict, we are the anti-war people. The progressives, the Bernie Sanders, the AOCs, the John Fettermans, the Jamal Bowmans, the people who are sending weapons are the pro-war camp. Are we clear? You do not send weapons and you do not engage in war to advocate for peace. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous. So I'm going to show you guys. Here's the receipt. This is the United States escalating this conflict. The United States reached a preliminary agreement to provide $12 billion in new assistance to Ukraine. This is my tweet. Nice, pretty good like total. We are watching a historic looting of the working class play out in real time. We are watching the destruction and looting of the working class play out that is 100% supported by the progressives, and people like Jamal Bowman are called out by it. Then they pull the people to the side and say, oh, we're going to do this anyway. We're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to help the neocon establishment destroy the global working class just so they can maintain their hegemonic dominance. What China and Russia is saying, the age of unipolarity is over. And the West rather destroy everything than let that happen. And Bernie Sanders and the squad and the progressives are complicit with that. And not the two campaigns he waged, not AOC defending Joe Crowley, not them advocating for the Green New Deal. Your legacy will forever be escalating World War III. Then forever be remembered now, especially when this thing is all said and done. Because at this point, and everyone who commented on this, the food shortages, the energy crisis, the effects of the Ukraine proxy war supported by the progressives is going to be felt for decades. So all this progressive advocacy you think you're doing, the progressive messaging you're doing, no one's going to remember that. The only thing people are going to remember is the fact that you guys sided with this. This is your legacy now, Bernie. It's enabling $80 billion to Ukraine. It's unbelievable. I want to show you guys a speech from Putin. I said before, because Putin had this big ceremony, the West was melting down because he annexed regions of Ukraine that was asking Russian help. The media, I watched a lot of segments. The media never mentioned that these areas that Russia annexed have asked Putin to do it already. And Donbass, in these regions, they wanted, and they said no before. Now, after being shelled and after the death of countless Ukrainian people, Eastern Ukrainian ethnic Russians, Russia, okay, this is we gotta step in now. And a lot of people criticize Russia for not doing that before. And the mainstream media will never explain the Russian perspective. In fact, despite Putin being enemy number one, you will expect them to show him speaking more. You will expect the mainstream media will show the message of Vladimir Putin, but they do not. They do not. They just show him. They show pictures of Putin mean mugging the camera. They're like, "Oh, look at this unhinged maniac." You see him. They show speeches of Hitler all the time. You know when those speeches he's just yelling German, spitting fascist. He's been like probably fascist. Like, bro, this boy's spitting fire. Like if you're a fascist, you agree with Hitler. They watch his speeches, they're like, that motherfucker's spitting. They showed all his speeches. When they showed Putin speak, the person they claim is the new Hitler, and they never show it. So I'm gonna show you guys this. I'm gonna show you guys a clip of Putin speaking. Here's his clip. And I just asked, where's the lie? The West began its colonial policy back in the Middle Ages and then followed the slave trade, the genocide of Indian tribes in America, the plunder of India, of Africa, the wars of England and France against China. Ooh. Where's the lie? Meanwhile, Biden and Donald Trump can't make a coherent sentence. Hillary Clinton, Americans can't even listen to Hillary Clinton. Every time she spoke, her approval rating went down. So this is why they never showed Putin speaking. This right here. Because imagine they air this on CNN. You got boomers and you got a lot of liberals getting troop bombs. And I'm gonna read this speech out from Putin here. I'll put the audio low. And this is why they will never show him on mainstream media. They only got painting this insane narrative that's not true. Where they say, "Oh, Putin, it was an unprovoked war," even though Chomsky himself said that them overusing unprovoked itself is a tell. Everyone knows history. We know what you guys was complicit with. We know what the CIA did in 2014. We know the Western and NATO expansion past Eastern Germany. We know the escalations, the Minsk Accord that you guys broke. And no Chomsky, like, you guys think you're gonna just erase this from history? So every time you guys say unprovoked, that's a tell. So this is Putin speaking. So once again, they never show in the West. Even if you're one of the people watching the stream and you're seething, Nick, oh my God, can't believe Nick is showing Putin's point of view. I saw one comment in my eye. They said, "You're Putin. You like Putin?" No, motherfucker. I'm showing you guys his response. Putin is an anti-communist. I don't really care about Putin. I would think as a citizen journalist, it's important to show their point of view, which our media never does. They never do it. And it shouldn't hurt you to hear the perspective, because if Putin was the unhinged maniac that you guys think he is, me just reading his statements would be, it will show that. It will demonstrate that, right? So let's play this video here. I'll read along because I know he's speaking Russian. I know some people may be just listening. He said the West is ready to cross every line for the sake of preserving the neo-colonial system, which allows it to live off and plunder the world. Thanks to the domination of the dollar and technological supremacy. They want to continue collecting the hegemon's rent, tribute payments from humanity. This is sanctions. This is the IMF bankrupting countries. Meanwhile, China is building them. Gee, that's so fire. That's fire. I'll read that part again. They want to continue to collect the hegemon's rent, tribute payments from humanity, which is their primary source of unearned prosperity. Imagine Joe Biden and Donald Trump trying to say this shit. The preservation of this rent is their main, real, and absolute self-serving motivation. It is therefore in their interest to de-sovereignize the world. And that is exactly what the United States has done. The UK and England colonized everyone. The CIA constantly interferes in elections. They even they straight up open about this, where you had people on Fox News complaining when Colombia got their first leftist leader. You had Tucker Carlson and a lot of people on Fox News like, why don't we do something about this? We used to do that all the time. That was the Monroe Doctrine, where anything in the Western Hemisphere, it's our backyard. We're gonna strip the sovereignty of the people. That's why they hate Venezuela, because Venezuela constantly rejecting Western interference. Let me continue. There's so many good points here. This explains their aggression towards independent states, traditional values, and authentic cultures. As well as their attempts to undermine international integration processes, new global currencies, and technological development centers they cannot control. It is critically important for them to force all countries to surrender their sovereignty to the United States. In certain countries, the ruling elites voluntarily agree to do this and become vassals. Others are bribed or intimidated. Now you're talking about the Bolsonaros, right? The Ivan Duques of Colombia. There's so many examples. And if this doesn't work, they destroy entire states. This is them punishing people. They punished the Nicaraguan people by putting sanctions because they supported the Sandinistas. They punished the Venezuelans for supporting Hugo Chavez and now Nicolas Maduro. The same way Ron DeSantis wanted to punish Colombia for electing Gustavo Petro. The same way Biden is starving Afghanistan for pushing the United States out and defeating them in their war. The United States punish countries that do not allow them to become their puppets. This is why, as people who live in the U.S. imperial core, our main focus should be calling these people out, not repeating neoliberals' attacks on their enemies like the progressives do now. So I'm going to read this part again. If this does not work, they destroy entire states, leaving behind humanitarian disasters, devastation, ruins, millions of wrecked and mangled human lives. I'll probably butcher that, but whatever. Terrorist enclaves, social disaster zones, colonies, they don't. They pretty much say they don't care about the effects, only extracting from their own benefits. Their greed and determination to preserve unfettered dominance are the real reasons behind the hybrid war that the collective West is now waging against Russia. Like I said, they're fighting the NATO army, the Western army, billions of weapons being sent to Ukraine. This is not Ukraine versus Russia. This is Russia versus NATO and the entire Western hegemon. Germany literally ran out of weapons. You guys know that? Germany sent so many weapons, they were like, oh, Zelensky, I'm sorry, we're out. And then Fox News did a segment, because this is how I know this. Fox News did a segment attacking Germany, and it was like, why is the United States the only one standing up to Ukraine? Our Western allies need to pick up the tab. And Germany was like, motherfucker, we ran out of weapons. So the United States and their Western allies is fighting Russia. And now the Western media is shocked that Russia is now drafting people and then mobilizing. What do you guys think was going to happen? Sending weapons and engaging for war does not equals peace. Yeah, I'll let it play. They don't wish for us freedom. They want us to be a colony. Yep. They don't want equal cooperation. They want to plunder our wealth. And that's why they love Gorbachev. And all the Western media was praising him because he destroyed the quality of life because he was a Western puppet. They view our way of thinking, our philosophy as a direct threat. That's why they try to assassinate our philosophers. They're talking about Dugin here. Our culture and art present a danger to them, so they're trying to ban it. And this is how the Russians feel it. They like, all right, the West fucking hate us. Let's go to war. Fuck it. That's why Putin has such a high approval rating in Russia, despite what you hear from the corporate media in this country. Our development and prosperity is also menacing to them because of growing competition. And that is true. Not only because of Russia, literally the United States said China is a national security threat. Why? Guys, why is China a national security threat? Do you feel any threat from China? Motherfucker, I feel way more threat from the fascist police capitalist thugs that occupy my neighborhood than I do of China. But they view them as a threat, and NATO said their new agenda is push back on China because China prosperity is a threat. Putin is just repeating the stuff that they say, guys. On RBN, we repeat the stuff that they say. All right, that was pretty basic speech. About 90 minutes in. What was the last part of this segment? I'll cut it off there because I think that's a good segment. With 90 minutes in, I like the solo strings to be like 90 minutes. I got a few more stories, but Nick and CJ coming up, on Monday. So make sure you check us out. JB show tomorrow. Let me do a chat check before I actually sign off. I don't want to make sure I'm missing soup chat. I see CJ in the comments. Yeah, big shout out to my brother CJ, killing the game recently. This CJ, everything the United States tells us about other countries is a lie. See, there's my brother now. That's how I know I need to log off here. Everything the United States tell us, I assume they're lying, and I'll take it from there. And if they are telling the truth, and it doesn't happen often, I'm like, wow, that's interesting. It doesn't happen often. I cannot emphasize that enough. I see CJ. I'm gonna see if there's another. I'm gonna put CJ. CJ said this Putin speech is based so far. Guys, you know how many speeches I watched from Putin? I'm like, bro, he telling the truth there. Not a lie. But anyway, I probably should wrap up soon. But anyway, make sure you guys share. Make sure you guys subscribe. Subscribe to the Patreon. I actually went over my time. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one.